Well, here we go. Okay, Bubba, welcome to the program, Mr. CHCH, Mr. Hamilton Football. The reverb was you were logged in twice. I can take you out. You're in here twice. That's what your reverb is.
Am I? Is that what it is? Hold on.
Yeah. So I can take you out, or you take out the second one. There you go. That you'll find it's gone now.
Well, we lost Bubba now.
No, he didn't. He's right there.
Nice.
But now there's no reverb.
I don't know why I logged in twice.
Oh, good, Bubba.
You were too eager, I think.
I'm anxious to talk football. I mean, this Friday night.
Absolutely. So, it always comes down to the most excitement for, the QEW battle is Toronto and Hamilton. It's so old and not tired. It gets more and more exciting. From your perspective, it's been a tough couple of years with Hamilton and the way they've been playing. We'll start by saying they're a lot better team today than they've been in the past few years. And I suggest they're probably as good a team as they were that made it to the Grey Cup. They can be. Let me rephrase that.
Well, the talent is certainly there, and I think you have to look at the offense first, which did so well, especially in the back half of the season. Special teams has always been steady. Mark Leggio has been an outstanding kicker since being acquired after the Blue Bombers dropped him. I think the defense has always been an issue, and the new defensive coordinator, Brett Monson, has got some new tools that he's working with. And it's interesting. Always talk about the offense taking a little bit longer to get going in a football season, but the defense also had to get accompanied with each other right now. And I thought you saw a wonderful display last week at home, and what a game that I think a lot of people did not expect the Hamilton Tiger Cats to beat the Montreal Alouettes, regardless of their backup and their injury situation.
Well, having a backup in is a thing, David.
Yeah, I know it definitely is, right? And it sometimes I think when people see some CFL teams have, a complete turnaround quickly, people think that all CFL teams are capable of doing it. But we're seeing it. I mean, you look at Edmonton. It's never just because you add in a bunch of flashy free agents, it's never going to lead to immediate success. So, I do think that if you're willing to be patient and let the results eventually come, they'll happen. But it's kind of tough being patient if you're talking to anyone in Hamilton because you constantly keep hearing about 1999 each and every year, I guess.
I don't even know. Yeah, you're right. 1999 keeps coming up. It's almost it's to the point now where the players that were on that 99 team are saying, "Look, we don't want to be the last guys that have won the Grey Cup. They want to see a team. And there's been some opportunities. Let's be honest. An Ackland drop pass at home, that would have been legendary. But nonetheless, though, I think that's not really the concern, I think, really, to the Tiger Cat fan right now. The concern, and this is why the Montreal win was so big, was these consistent slow starts. Dating back to 2019, this team is always 1-3, 1-4, 0-5 to start the season. And then Labor Day hits, the Argos game happens, and then there's this incredible rally to get to the postseason. Sometimes they get in, sometimes they don't. And as the history has been since they get in, when they do get in, they're out. They have to travel to Montreal, and they're out in one game. So you got to see some consistency. Definitely you want to see some growth, but you can't have these slow starts, where everyone starts saying, well, the season doesn't start till Labor Day. Well, don't tell me that. No Cat fan wants to hear that, because had you won a couple of games to start the season, then we wouldn't be worrying about, the end of the season and trying to, just sneak in the playoffs.
How was the feeling after that win against Montreal, though? Like, how do you feel like there was a bit? I wouldn't say like everyone breathed a sigh of relief that this team got a win early in the year, but it must feel like there's some progress, a little bit of an ease, knowing that there's some things to build on here.
Like I said, I thought the reason why Cat fans walked out of there really, really excited is because they saw a game where the Cats really did play a game that, they were pretty steady in all three aspects. The offense was efficient, did what they did. No real deep threats, with the exception of a Kenny Lawler incompletion, which would have been an unbelievable catch, but the call was correctly made at incomplete. But they saw a running game. They saw some short passes. Tony Augustine, I thought, played a real good game in the place of Greg Bell. Special teams were unbelievable. I thought Tyler Tarnowski came up with maybe one of the better special teams tackles I've seen in some time, which set up a defensive touchdown in the sense of, that bad snap to Bethel Thompson, which he fumbled in the end zone. Defense scored 2 touchdowns. If your defense scored 2 touchdowns, the place is going to ignite. And the pride and joy of the Tiger Cat fans for as long as I can remember is always a defense. Never really the offense, even those 99 teams. It's the defense. It's a hard-working town. And when that defense are making statement plays, the place goes nuts.
Defense for Hamilton the past couple of years have been, at least since Bo Levi Mitchell came in, once Bo Levi Mitchell got to do what he's capable of doing, the offense on its own looked really good for Hamilton the past few years. It's been the defense. And the injury to Peters last year, I think, slowed, he was part of the plan, and you could see the difference when he's playing.
You certainly can, right? But again, this is football 101. I don't care how good your defensive backs are. I don't care how good your secondary is. Stavros Katsantonis, at the safety position. All those guys are solid. But if you're not getting any pressure up front, if you're getting nothing from your defensive line, well, those guys are exposed. This is not an NFL field. You guys know this. This is a CFL field where you have talented wide receivers that are getting a 5-yard run up the field with the waggle. So if you're not getting any pressure on the quarterback, it's mute. But what you did see against Montreal was a real steady dose of blitzes and at times great pressure with just 4 men. And they understood the job. The job was McLeod, Bethel, Thompson. He's not a guy that's going to escape the pocket. He's going to challenge with his arm. He's going to try and put the ball downfield. And it worked in the Ticats' favor. Now, when we see the likes of Vernon Adams in game number 1, that was a different case. I would also say that was game number 1. So when the Ticats start playing some more mobile quarterbacks, they will be really then put to the test.
Yeah, the important thing is that, when you talked about, the offer, right? That's what this win does. This win eliminates that offer that lasted too long the past few years. And when you talked about Labor Day, the season doesn't start Labor Day. Well, I think I'll qualify it by saying that Labor Day is when you get ready for the playoffs.
That's right.
Ready for the playoffs, you got to be in the hunt for a playoff spot. You can't get into Labor Day and going, I got to win every game and the other team has to lose at least half their games. No, that math ain't going to work for you too often. I know there's only 9 teams in the league, but it's still, it's not that easy to recover from a really bad start.
Well, I think that's why, you look at a team like Ottawa, why a victory was so, important for them. I mean, I know they've got injury problems, but woe is me, that's the way it is. The same thing for Edmonton in what looks like it's going to be a real tough West division, seemingly always is in the West. You just can't go 0-5. You just put yourself in too much of a pressure situation with 13 games to go. And you're right, that win for the Tiger Cats over Montreal in front of the home crowd was really important. But, hey, you guys have been covering this game for as long as I have, and in some case even longer. It's about stacking victories, because that win next week will be quickly forgotten if the Argonauts do a number on the Ticats this week. You got to start stacking victories and becoming a better football team.
It's all about process, David.
No, it definitely is. And, of course, yeah, we constantly hear there's still time in the season. There's still time in the season. But if you talk to enough coaches, they want to establish a culture. They want to establish, their standard, right? We just saw Ryan Dinwiddie, 2 weeks ago, lay into his team after that loss, after going 0-3, starting 0-3. It's never happened for him before.
No.
right? You saw people interpret that as like he's already losing it, but it's more so he understands that if he doesn't start showing the displeasure now, if he doesn't set the line now, then it kind of allows for, complacency. And if you want to be a contender, you cannot be complacent and say, we have this going on, we have that going on. The last second they get a touchdown off a kickoff, like, so we were like right there. Those certain things, I think you have to establish that a lot earlier in the season, that those things are not acceptable regardless of the result.
Drilling down on that point, though, David.
Yeah.
If the Argos lose last week, he doesn't sit there in the post game and apologize for having lost it the week before. Well, let's keep it real here. The point is, he doesn't like losing, and he's not accustomed to it, and he wants no part of it. We've got to expect, Milanovic is not the kind of guy that does that. He doesn't fume at the he's a real calm guy. And the moment that he signed with Hamilton, we know that they're going to have a good team eventually, because he just knows what a winner looks like. And Bubba, that's the biggest thing that Hamilton needed, was they needed winners, because they, losing 2 Grey Cups at home in a row, that was enough. That was a bottoming out period. The owner selling a little bit of the team. A lot of messages were sent. A lot of displeasure, right? Justifiable.
Well, you're right. And
taken.
It's I don't know. I'm not in the locker room, obviously. I'm not amongst the groups of the players, and and to a man, they all said in those years, in many of those seasons, that they remained together. But winning breeds winning, and losing breeds losing, and you keep finding ways to lose games. And you're right. And all of a sudden, there's an attitude of accepting a loss, or accountability is huge. And that's what I love about Scott Milanovic, is you're accountable. Right, with all due respect to Kyle Wilson, right, a pretty good middle linebacker, had almost 90 tackles last year, one of the better players on defense. But I kind of said this on my sportscast at CHCH, is that the next man up philosophy sometimes is used out of necessity because of injury, and then there's sometimes where it's used on purpose, right? Because they knew what they had in Devin Vereshchuk. And now I'll be honest, I thought this would probably happen around the middle of the season, but they saw enough of what they saw from this kid from Windsor, who they drafted 2nd overall, to say, we got to get turned to this guy. The page has been turned, right? And Kyle Wilson hopefully has a good career with Calgary, right? But the time had come now when it was all about accountability. And at 0-2, someone was going to pay the price. There are going to be changes. And I'm not saying this was all on Kyle Wilson, but they look at as you said, the talent, and said, we got to get this kid in there. This kid's a winner. This kid wants to win. He's working very hard and has done so through preseason and rookie camp and training camp. So good to get him in there. And you're right about Scott Milanovic. I thought one of the more interesting things he said after the victory was that, really happy for the guys and proud of the guys, because I feel like we've practiced really well in preparation for Calgary and for Saskatchewan, and we didn't really get rewarded, right? So that tells me the guys are working. I don't think he's just bullshitting. I think he's just saying that, meaning that, the guys are working hard, and it's going to come. It's going to come. It's going to come. And here we go. They got something going, maybe.
Oh, they're going to work hard in practice, because that's, if you want to see Milanovic's top come off in practice, it comes off. It comes off in practice. You can hear him when they're not doing things right. You can hear him if he's on one end of the field. You can still hear him outside the stadium in your car, because he's not very shy at practice about being a taskmaster. He's a very good coach, and he doesn't take BS. But he likes to patrol the sideline in peace. It doesn't mean, don't misunderstand the way he behaves at the sideline, as that's the way he behaves in practice.
Just on that note, there was a time during training camp where he was not happy with a couple of things that Bo Levi Mitchell did. And you heard it. You could hear it in the seats. He didn't care if Bo is thrown for 40,000 yards or sitting on 99 wins, fastest to 100 than anyone else in CFL history. He let it all out, right? And and to what I thought, and you talk about accountability, that when the microphones got put in front of Bo Levi Mitchell, he said, "Yeah, I didn't get that right. I didn't do that correctly, and I deserve to be called." So that's why I think accountability is just so huge, and accepting when you do things wrong and trying to say, "How can I make it better, and how will I make it better?"
Yeah, you know, there's a difference, David, between accountability and excuses.
Yeah, I mean, I in just a short time, I knew Scott Milavich back. I mean, this is also when he had a veteran roster too. He definitely would let it be known. If he wasn't happy, he would definitely let it be known. But you know, I do wonder, you know, with a coach like him who's trying to get this roster to come together, like especially early on, how much do you really want to push that, right? Because eventually we hear about, you know, you lose the locker room, you lose the locker room a bit.
Yeah.
I don't think that's obvious that I haven't had with Scott at all, but I do wonder, you know, with certain coaches, you always hear coaches kind of warn out his welcome because it just gets to the point where it gets to be a little too much on the players. But I think with I mean, Milavich has the one thing that he can tell these guys: I've won, right? Not once, he's won twice, or he's won multiple times, right? Montreal, Toronto. He knows what it takes to get a team there, but you got to have everybody pull. I don't know if it was him that told me or if it was Jim Pop. Everyone's got to be pulling on the same train. Everyone's got to be coming together. You can't be doing it as a single rider.
You know what I like about Scott too, and it's funny that you talk about the sort of losing the room kind of mental thing that happens sometimes to football, to all sports teams, is that I find guys that lose the room for exactly what you're talking about, the yellers and the screamers, the guys that are willing to call out players, you know, sometimes in front of the fans, that you can only go to that so many times. But what I've noticed too is that the guys that do that, that want to be buddies with the players, that's when the players start to see the weakness in the coach, and they sometimes take advantage of the situation. Scott is not buddy with the players, right? Like, I'm not saying he's such a hard ass, but you know, like maybe a Kent Austin, but like he sees the separation between coach and player. And I think that definition is right there for the players to understand, and they get it. Does he, you know, will he pull a guy aside and give him a hug and a tap on the ass? Absolutely. But he's not there to be everyone's buddy. And the roles are clearly defined on the Ticats this year. And I can't say that over the last couple of years that it's been like that.
Well, you've defined basically the extent of how coaches should behave towards their players. There's the extreme nice guy who goes too far, and then there's the extreme, I'll call it bully, emotional bully. Neither of those coaches are successful today because the players are different today. So that doesn't work today. That, you know, it's a new era. It's been for a while, not just recently. There's a new era here where players are people, and you got to treat them like people. The trick is while you're treating them like people, how do you make them responsible, or in your word, accountable? Well, the way you do that is you make sure, I think, and what gives me rise to believe the Ticats are in a good place with their coach, he knows exactly the right time to lose it. He knows exactly the right time to pat the guys in the back like you talked about. You can do both those things, but it's timely when you do both those things. You can't just do them whenever, like it can't be your go-to move is what I'm saying. It has to be something that the situation calls for. And it's understanding the difference about when you get tough and when you get, you know, understanding. You got to know when to do that. And, you know, you can't be surprised. Milavich has a little bit of experience in the Canadian Football League. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we've talked about him and losing his temper, yada, 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 but the baseline for him is he's one of the best coaches to have ever coached in the Canadian Football League. When he came to Hamilton, I knew they were on the right track. A. B. I knew that when Bo Levi Mitchell came, there was a distinct possibility that the Ticats would have the same situation that they've had over the years. They brought in quarterbacks from other teams who are done like dinner, done like toast. They brought them in, and somehow they've found a second life playing for the Ticats. I probably can name 3 or 4 just in the past 30 years that have had that situation. Caleros is one. There's a lot of quarterbacks that have come to Hamilton with experience and have been timely and good for Hamilton. And David, you remember when I was talking about this, about Bo Levi Mitchell might have the chance because they're made in heaven for each other. You got Hamilton, a team that likes veteran quarterbacks and likes reclamation projects, and you got quarterbacks that bring a really good pedigree, but for some reason they're not doing it right now. They go to Hamilton and things happen. This to me is not a surprise. The way Hamilton's playing and the way Bo Levi's playing is not a surprise to me.
Imagine this, the Bo Levi Mitchell, all the money spent, the press conference, his face is all over the city. And Scott Milanovich, after, I think it was a 3-pick game or a 2-pick game last season, says, that's it. You're benched. You're benched. I mean, who benches Bo Levi Mitchell? And I get it in Calgary because the time had come. He had been there for, a decade. I get it. The time had come and Jake Mayer was ready to move on as the starter. That made sense to me, right? You saw 2 guys, yin and yang. But he got benched for Taylor Powell. All respect for Taylor Powell. But he sat down a certain Hall of Famer because he wasn't doing as he was told. Straight up. Like that, all he asked of his quarterbacks is don't turn over the football. And Bo was turning over the football. So he had to sit. Are you not telling me that didn't reverberate around the locker room? Hence why the team went on and won. I won like 6 or 7 right after it.
And don't forget, Bubba, he got hurt and he came back in. Bo Levi Mitchell came in because he got hurt.
And was a completely different quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. That was an important function. David?
Yeah, I mean, in the time that I remember with Scott Milanovich, like 2016, that always remind me of just a time where he didn't have a quarterback. Ricky Ray was hurt, and so they had to kind of go to the well. And I just remember they brought in, oh my God, how many quarterbacks they had that year? They had like 5 different quarterbacks at one point. Like they brought in Drew Willie.
Oh, that's University of Buffalo.
5 or 6 interceptions.
That didn't last long. Then they tried Logan Kilgore. The guy threw almost for every touchdown he threw, there was like 4 picks to go with it. It was like, but that was the thing with Milanovich. Always preached protect the football. And the only player that did protect the football was Ricky Ray, but the guy was hurt because he kept getting hit all the time. And lo and behold, he loses his job in 2016. 2017, here comes Mark Trestman, his mentor. He decides, I think this Ricky Ray guy still has a little left in the tank. And lo and behold, they go and they win a Grey Cup. And I felt like saying, I don't think it was the coaching change that did it. I think it was having a Ricky Ray who threw, twice as many touchdowns as interceptions, healthy and able to play a full season more so. And to me, that's always when you talk about not turning the ball over, it reminds me of that 2016 team where he just like, can I just get a quarterback that doesn't throw like 2 or 3 interceptions in a game? It's kind of how I when you say that reminds me a lot of what Milanovich asks for when he has his quarterbacks. And look at the quarterbacks he's developed, right? Zach Laros, Trevor Harris. He's had Ricky Ray. There's one more I'm missing there, but he's had the knack for doing it. Cody Fajardo at one point in time was under Milanovich too. He's brought in guys. He's had these guys understand that if you protect the football, but also go out and make plays, you're going to have success in this league.
Well, I guess no doubt when you played the position, and you played it at a high level, at Maryland, and of course, a little stint in the NFL, he understands it. A guy that's good enough to design an offense and be what we would call an offensive specialist. I mean, he knows what needs to be done, and it's one of the big mysteries of Scott Milanovich to me right now is because we're seeing in modern day football. That where coaches are coaching as the head coach, and are basically, in some cases, either having their responsibilities as defensive coordinators and head coach, or offensive coordinator and head coach. Those dual roles are being taken away by most general managers nowadays, and saying, no, we got to have a guy here, whatever, we want you to be the guy, right? But Scott is doing both. And is apparently doing it at a very high level as well too, and he takes on that responsibilities. I can't imagine what that must be like to be the head coach and overseeing all that needs to be as a head coach, that kind of daily grind that goes on, and yet he's the guy, writing up the game plan for the Toronto Argonauts this weekend, looking at all the film, talking with Bo Levi Mitchell in the quarterback room and the rest of the offense, and then going out there and preparing for the next 3-4 days before the game. It's a tremendous responsibility that I don't think everyone can do. You got to be able to be not only a good taskmaster, but a guy that can certainly organize his time and still get the job done in terms of wins and losses.
Yeah, great coach. Let's change gears a little bit, just to move it to the fans now. Here's one of the things. I have a theory, and it's a theory I've had for a very long time. The Ticats suffer from what I'll call maple leaf-itis. And maple leaf-itis is when you have a fan base that is so devoted to you, that supports you to no end. I believe sometimes there's a little bit of pressure on the players because they want to make the fans happy. That's an extra little thing that Hamilton has that not many other teams have, to the extent that they do. I mean, I don't, I'd have to think Riders maybe as fans that are as deeply supportive of their franchise and take losses to heart. To think of those two teams are about probably the most that fit that definition. Do you think maybe, Bubba, that the players recognize how loyal the fans are, how much the fans want the players to win, and knowing that it's been since 1999, it can be a little tough. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think Milanovic is a great coach. It does require a real level-headed approach, because the pressures are there. People don't respect or understand how deeply the Hamilton Tiger Cats fans, love their team. Besides the fact Argos suck, there's a little more to them than that.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I will kind of say, this is difficult to say. I'm wondering if the Ticats, if you want to call it Ticats Nation, I hate using that term, but I will. If there's, and you talk about the Leafs, the thing the Leafs are that is so bizarre is that they haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1967. Yet they keep selling out the building. They're always there. The building's packed. When they go on a 10-game win streak, the place are going crazy. Everyone's talking Leafs. I believe that would be the case for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, but I don't think that's what's going on right now. And this is where I'm going to veer off from what you're saying, is that people right now, I think, are in a show me mood, right? And I can't remember the last time. Now, the numbers might suggest it. But in my opinion, from what I saw, I was there, obviously being part of the Ticats audio network, that building was not sold out. Now, there are different activations and things going on with the stadium where we have something called the Stipley, where it's like a big bar in the end zone, the concourse level on the west stands, there's you can fill tons of people there. So maybe some of these people aren't in their seats. But in my opinion, that building was not sold out. This last Friday against Montreal, there were 4,000 empty seats from what I could see, right? So Ticat fans right now, after all of what they've seen over the years, the different coaching moves, like I'll tell you this, the Ticats, I know Winnipeg right now are the hot team right now, 7 straight sellouts. They've they're putting together a nice package at Princess Auto Stadium. But I don't think anyone sell the sizzle better than the Tiger Cats with all that they got going on. But I think right now in this steel town, hardworking town, people want some steak. And the steak is winning, right? So this is why I think wins are so critical right now for this franchise. And I'm going to throw this in too, with all due respect to the man, because I've known him since high school, is Ted Govaya, right? So happy for the man after so many years of being with the Argos as an O-line coach and being in U Sports ranks and scouting and doing all he did with Winnipeg for all those years. We've been saying it forever. He's the next guy ready to be a GM. And here he is in his first year of being a GM, and not only 6 months into the gig, he has health issues right now that he's really, like, some challenging health issues that he's got to focus on right now. Thank goodness he was there at the stadium for the victory. So there's a little motivation there too, right? There's a lot of pressure on that team right now to win for many reasons. But to your question, I'm not sure if that Leaf comparison that you're putting on right there is applicable for the Tiger Cats right now. Because there was a time when the building was always sold out, and it didn't matter if a team was 5-18, 5-12, or 5-13, or in some cases 2-16. Yeah, people just wanted to be there for the party. As long as we went on Labor Day. I don't think that's the case right now.
Yeah, the difference though with the Leafs and Hamilton is the numbers of supporters that they can draw from. And there have been times, it is rare, hardly ever happened, but before Shanahan came to Toronto, people were turning in their tickets. There were unsold tickets at games back then. So along with the jerseys, meeting the ice, that stuff. But
waffles.
We're talking about 100 tickets. I'm not talking thousands. Not something you would really notice. But tickets were for sale game day. If I remember, before Shanahan came, you could buy tickets game day. So it's a matter of relativity, right? The relative nature of what looks like when the Leafs are losing support. For them, there were one hockey market in a place that's some 15 million people, and a half hour, an hour away in a hockey crazy country. I mean, it is what it is. But let's stick to the football, and the football part that I really like is how the Canadian Football League finds these young talents, these young players that come in and instantly are stars in their rookie year. Name me the guys on Hamilton. You named one. Name a couple more that we, as fans who don't watch Hamilton as closely, who should we look for on Friday? Young players that are up and comers.
Well, I'm gonna repeat myself in a sense too. That Devin Verachuk is the guy that I think right now. You talk about guys. I'm gonna think of an Adam Bighill, right, in his best days with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. You knew where that cat was all the time. And he was one of those guys, I'll call him a mucker, right? I think Devin Verachuk has those same qualities, just always around the play, even at this young age right now. And, I'm sure when the coaches looked at the game tape that there were errors and mistakes that he made. But you know what? He's a quick learner, and I think he's going to be a difference maker as well, too. I'm also going to look towards the likes of, and not to just say rookies, but guys that I think that are ready to make steady improvements. I think that Shamar Bridges is just an outstanding receiver. He was on pace last year with, I believe, 87 receptions. He had already broken the franchise record, but he was on pace to break the CFL record for most receptions as a rookie. And he only played 14 games because he suffered an injury. When this guy gets more acclimated to the offense, because right now it's the Lawler show, right? I mean, of course, Bo Levi and the fans are loving this guy right now, and he's been unbelievable, right? The targets are going to him right now, but just wait till I guess Bo starts to realize that, hey, the guy I threw the ball to for over 100 100 targets last year, he's still there waiting for the ball. So I think this second-year receiver is a guy that a lot of people don't know about, and I think he's really, really going to step it up. I watch out for him. I think he's a big difference on offense as well too.
Bubba, when you look at the East right now, you got Montreal that got off to this pretty decent start. Obviously, the health of Davis Alexander now kind of made things a little. The water's a little weird there, right? They got to wonder, is McLeod keep things ahead if Davis is not able to come back as soon as they maybe hope. But what do you make of the East right now? Because it just looks like a bit of a jumbled mess.
You talk about pressure to win, and I thought the team that is under the most pressure to win in the East is Ottawa. So many moves have been made by Sean Burke, who was a co-general manager here in Hamilton, and since taking over that ship in Ottawa, a team that missed the playoffs, I believe, in back-to-back years, made the playoffs last year, quickly knocked out. So a step had been taken, and they need further steps to be taken too. They are just getting off a long losing streak at home games, and then return the favor by winning some home games last year and sort of reinvigorating people in Ottawa to get out there to TD Place at TD Stadium and watch games, right? Because you can see that this team, are they good? Are they not? But right now, with no Drew Brown and the Cruminator running the offense, I don't know. I don't think they're that good. It looks like to me, I think I just read today that Braylon Addison, who I thought has played very well as sort of that reliable receiver, he could be out for a month. So injuries have really hit that team, on the offensive line, their quarterback, which in the CFL, you need to have consistent quarterbacking, as you know. Your defense is getting exposed as well, too. So to me, the most pressure is in Ottawa right now, believe it or not, over Hamilton, because I think that right now people are teeter-tottering on, right, is this team for real? And if not, there could be some serious changes if that team does not make the postseason.
This past weekend made a lot of changes in people's thinking. The week before, Ottawa won their first game. Then Toronto won their first game, and Hamilton won their first game. And Montreal lost their first game. All of a sudden, it isn't, Montreal off to the races and the other three, looking like they really need to do some work to find how to play football. Yeah. Things changed last weekend, and it's going to keep changing. It's going to keep changing because that's what happens with the Canadian Football League. It just is the way it is. And yes, not as bad today as it was a few years ago. As you remember, when you lost your starting quarterback, there were no backups. Now we live in a CFL era. We live in an era where number one quarterbacks and MVPs of Grey Cups are backup quarterbacks. So the quarterback situation isn't as dire as it maybe was in the past. So the excuse of losing your quarterback and losing a game don't necessarily equate.
Help me out here. Look, this again, I'll say this to a guy that's lasted in the league for as long as he did. Hence, that's why Arbuckle was such a great story, winning Grey Cup MVP. But how good is he? Right? Like we saw a magical performance that day against a very good Winnipeg team in the Grey Cup. I know he's putting up some big time yardage, like a lot of stats right now, but can he deliver victories? I look at a guy that has been in the league for as long as he has, and I say bravo to you, because obviously you've got the skills to be a quarterback in this league. But there's also been a track record of being with how many teams? I'm not going Kevin Glenn here, but how much can the Argos rely on this guy? Because I was led to believe, and you guys can help me out here, I was led to believe that Chad Kelly was real close. I'm not talking about preseason, because the Ticats and Argos played each other twice in the preseason. The word was that Chad Kelly wasn't too far away, that they would only have to rely on Arbuckle for a quick couple games. And now released last week that he's not going to be back till minimum week 7.
No, that's what I figured all along, Bubba.
There's a couple things to that. I think, look, he had an infection that took him away from being able to do rehab.
On his toe,
that apparently he wasn't able to do some of the workouts that he wanted to do to get the strength back. And the problem is he doesn't have full strength in the leg.
All right.
And for them to think that how gruesome that injury was, that he was going to be ready to go for the start of training camp, to me, that was so ambitious. I said, I don't see that happening.
Never saw
it. And then, I'm watching him in practice, and constantly hearing Dewey say, we're just not comfortable. He's not really able to run. He's not able to do the things that'll protect himself. So I'm like, this is not something that's going to be, we'll take it a game at a time. No, this is something that's going to take him significant time to get ready. So yeah, I felt he should have been on the 6th game to start. But part of it too is I think there was a bit of gamemanship going on. Because if you say to a team, yeah, we think Kelly could be ready, well, guess what that team now has to prepare for?
Yeah,
They got to think about Chad Kelly. So I think there probably was a little bit of that as well. And so personally, I think that it was a little bit of that, but it's also just a realization that this could have been an injury that he may never have come back from. Like there was that possibility, right? You saw it.
We saw it. It was horrendous.
I was like,
horrific.
I was ready to just curl over in the corner and just like, oh, good.
Well, who was the offensive lineman that dropped to his knees when he actually saw his leg?
Yeah, like I can't remember which offensive lineman it was, but like the reaction from it, even the reaction from it, you knew it was that bad.
He was in shock,
right? Like he initially thought he could walk on. I'm like, what makes you think you're going to be able to walk on that, dude? The shock and adrenaline of it. So. And I hate to say it, but like Chad Kelly coming back in weeks, like what Chad Kelly are they going to get? Because I don't know if it's going to be the full version of Chad Kelly too. And look, he did some significant work with his personal trainer to help get some of the strength going in that leg. But it's not. I wonder how much of the Chad Kelly we're going to see when he comes back. But the one thing I think Dinwiddie will know better about Chad Kelly than Nick Arbuckle. It's the arm strength. It's his ability to go for those big plays, but also put his receivers in a better spot to make those big plays. Because Arbuckle, while he did push the ball down the field, he did it, better against Ottawa than he did the other few games. His receivers also had to make some unreal play. Like there was some tough catches by his receivers. So I look, Arbuckle is good if you're in a pinch. But it's been proven that once he has to really take command of the offense, he struggles with it. He struggles to really get those big plays for touchdowns. And for Dinwiddie, he wants the big plays. He's not a gun shy coach. He wants to expand this playbook, have this very wide ranging of plays so that it's hard to defend against. But with Arbuckle, it's just not there.
Well, why didn't they go out and get somebody? Like, I mean, there was opportunities to get guys this year, right? Now, I know they kind of, by winning and having a Grey Cup winning quarterback that wins the MVP, they kind of got screwed in the sense it's like, well, I guess we have to give this guy a contract extension. They kind of put themselves in that situation by that happening. But there were guys out there, were there not? To go out there, I mean, Cody Fajardo might have came back to Toronto.
They struggle so much to bring guys in because they pay their offensive line a lot. Like, there's a reason why they were having one of the better offensive lines because they paid every single guy on that line a lot of money, and so I always said like. As good as Arbuckle is, like, why don't you see if somebody else was available that you can bring in and see what they could do? But I also think just Dinwiddie had that comfortable. He knows he presumes to know he can get out of Arbuckle. I thought, right? I like they couldn't even keep Kadeem Carey. Like running backs don't make that much in the CF. Like they make veterans do make a good chunk of change. They couldn't even keep him around, right? And so I think. The uncertainty that they had with Chad Kelly also played a bit of a factor because they could have played him on the 6th game and you save that cap. You could have had somebody come in for the time being and play, but I think Dinwiddie thought, Nick did so well at the Grey Cup, give him a full training camp, right? He didn't have a full training camp with the team when he did come last year. He probably thought full training camp, get him some really decent reps in the preseason and it'll be all good. But I even saw in the preseason, I'm like, this isn't going to go as pretty as I think people were expecting. And this is now, like, there are people wondering if Kelly was going to be out longer, would Arbuckle even be able to last if he's not able to command this offense in the way? And look, that win last week wasn't because of the offense. Dinwiddie made that clear. The offense was not the reason that they won that game. So against Hamilton.
And if I can say this too, in a city where you're trying to sell the game too, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
The
I gotta
biggest,
say that. I gotta say that, right?
right?
Like,
The biggest problems Bubba, that the Argos have is when they get people showing up, they don't play well. We've had that over the past few years.
24 East final.
Exactly. That East final, the stadium was literally full.
You and I, you know what, Frank, I'll always give you credit because we sat beside each other in that game and you said, Kelly's done, right? He had thrown maybe 1 or 2 interceptions. I'm like, nah. And you're like, get him out, get him out, get him out, get him out. And I kind of bantered with you saying, how can you do that? Why would you do that? And it was like he got worse as the game went on. And by the time he kind of corrected himself, the game was over. The game was over.
No, there was something going on, and later he said it was a concussion. I don't think it was a concussion. We found out later there was something going on that affected his game. We'll go back to football and say this. I'll say this about the Argos, and I'll say this about Arbuckle. I'm gonna be the devil's advocate here when it comes to Arbuckle. Yes, he did win a Grey Cup. I'm not suggesting that he got the MVP. He got the MVP more because he was the quarterback, not because of what he did.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Having said that, again, the devil's advocate part is that he does enough to win. He can do enough to win. And he's not the reason. I disagree, David, a little bit. I'll agree with you that he isn't the reason they won the last game, but he's also not the reason they lost the first 3. Now, as much as the offense hasn't been that good, I'll grant you that. But the defense hasn't been the defense that Toronto fans are accustomed to. In fact, not a defense that I'm accustomed to. This has to be the worst defense that we've seen with the Argos and Dinwiddie as the head coach. That first game was ridiculous. The way the team played was just pathetic. And the problem is when you got a team playing poorly in special teams, offense, and defense, you can pick your poison and go ahead for the reason they lost. But just like winning, right? The reason you win is because most times it's because all 3 are working and they're making a contribution. The same things with losing. To lose all 3, nobody's getting up there to make a difference. So, it's football, right? This is what makes it so interesting and why we can talk like we do, because, flip the coin, you're both right for different reasons. So I'm not here to say that Arbuckle's a great quarterback. What I am going to say is that Dinwiddie has faith in him because Dinwiddie believes that Arbuckle can deliver on his playbook. Now, having said that, remember, Dinwiddie had Arbuckle before, and Arbuckle went adios. So we talked about coaches that they don't suffer bad quarterback, and Dinwiddie's one of them. And it doesn't matter who you are, right? It doesn't matter who you are. You could find yourself on the outside looking in if you don't deliver when he expects you to. That's why their backup quarterback that started last year isn't with the team. So, this is what happens. I love the guy you used to have that was in Montreal. And he just isn't finding it. And now his name just all of a sudden escaped me. My favorite Tiger Cat, Montreal Alouette.
Not Schultz.
Schultz. Matt, he's in Ottawa.
Schultz. I think Schultz is better than he's had a chance to show. And he could have been really good in Hamilton if he doesn't get injured. He was on a good run for a while, and then he got injured, and then it was all over again.
Yeah, I think he suffers from lack of arm strength. I think that's why. I mean, let's be honest here. He had that game this year with Ottawa and threw 3 picks, and the 3 picks were horrible. And they haven't gone back to him, right? Even through some poor play from Dustin Crum. So clearly they've made up their mind there. I mean, don't you have Tyree Adams there as well too, a guy that's won some games, which there are some words. I think AJ Jakubek was talking about the fact that he's a possibility. Again, these guys like Schultz and Arbuckle, they're all kind of the same to me, and with all due respect. And I feel like those are all guys that can come in and win you a couple of games when you're in a pinch, when your quarterback's out for 2 to 3 weeks. But under any extended amount of time, I don't think they're just not good enough. That's why they're not starters.
Therein lies the definition of a backup quarterback in the Canadian Football League. The definition of a Canadian Football League quarterback is don't lose me this season. Keep me close.
Yep.
That's the best you can expect from a backup quarterback. If they deliver that, when Primo comes in, they can get a +2 or a +3 with 10, 12 games, 8, 10 games left. So, and they can have a good record. But if you lose and lose and lose, we see Edmonton who my goodness, what Ford went through. And now we're seeing maybe possibly why Ford went through what he went through. His inconsistency is a problem.
Well, he has to learn too, right? Like he has to be given the opportunity to learn. That game against Winnipeg, I thought was a lot tighter than people really expected. And now they pulled away in the fourth, and maybe the most hostile place to be. Well, it is the most hostile place to play in the CFL right now. And Zach Caleros had a game of the gods. Look at his numbers. I believe he was 25 out of 30 for 350. Ran for a touchdown. Threw for 3 and didn't make a mistake. Right, so he's got to go up against that. But I saw some signs from Ford. He's a different cat, right? And you're right. He's got to learn, but he's got to play to learn.
That's the only way.
The skill sets are too good. His arm strength has improved. In that game alone, I thought he hung out in the pocket a little bit more than he normally does. In fact, I think he only had one rush in the entire game.
He's been told he can't lean on that too heavily. They don't want him leaning too heavily on running around.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. I think he's good for one. Almost every single game, he's good for one. Like, can you believe this guy play? Now, if you're running the offense for Edmonton, you don't want that. I don't think you want to have a situation where your quarterback's running for his life and then throwing off his back shoulder to the opposite side of the field for a 50-yard gain. Looks real good on the plays, the CFL plays of the week, but it's generally not designed that way.
Yeah. No, well, David, the running game, what we've seen, one of the big things that has given Toronto fits is they haven't been able to run the ball.
Yeah, and it's been their calling card the last couple of years. They usually are good for 100 yards a game, and they haven't come close. They haven't come close this year. Obviously, yeah, Jack Kelly can also run, and that makes it tougher for teams to know what they're going to do exactly. But right now, that's the issue that Toronto has right now, is that they are viewed as a one-dimensional offense because teams don't respect Toronto's ability to run. And why should they? They don't have – like, Mayan Williams can develop into a decent running back, but he's not there yet. This is his first time playing, getting into that pro game, right? To really understand the Canadian game, and did what he said. He's decent, but he's got to be a little more patient. He's got they know that there's room to grow, but the problem is he should be allowed that room to grow as not the featured back. Mac Mahan, his injury has pushed them in a position where, okay, now we have to rely on an unproven guy rather than somebody who has at least been around the offense long enough to handle a bit more of that workload. So they probably feel that, they just brought in LeBourne back. I spent time with Ottawa last year. He was with them in training camp. Like, they're kind of just right now throwing everything at the wall and hope something sticks.
Yeah, for a budget.
Yeah. Well, it's a CFL, right? But hear me out here. Are we in a situation with the Argonauts? Because this will favor the Tiger Cats. And sometimes head coaches who are also offensive coordinators or just offensive coordinators in general, they can be real stubborn sometimes. Right?
No,
I used to see that with Kent Austin all the time. If the running game didn't work right away, at the end of the day, you're like, oh, we only ran the ball 7 times. Well, because the first 5 rushes only went for 2 yards, 3 yards. You got to keep knocking on the door. Like, even if you run the ball, your running back for the Argonauts gets 10 carries for 39 yards. Well, that's the only way the play action pass works. You got to keep them guessing. And I think this is a situation Montreal got into where the Tiger Cats are saying, let's go, MBT. We're coming after you. So I think even when the game, you know what, you don't get first downs on runs. Of course, you're going to run into some 2-and-out situations. But I think you've got to keep banging on that door and be patient with your run game. Hopefully, you know what, every once in a while you're going to rip off one for 15 or 12 yards and move the chains. But you got to be patient.
The only thing I'll say about the running game and running backs, I think it takes a certain mindset to be a good running back in the Canadian Football League. And maybe call this conclusions I've drawn over a protracted period, over a long period, where I've seen a lot of really talented running backs come to the Canadian Football League and they just couldn't figure it out. And I just wonder how patient do you need to be in the Canadian Football League when you truck a running back out there and he can't do anything for a few games? Is he going to get better? Like, I just don't think so. I think there are enough talented football players, period, in North America. So many Americans that aren't playing football somewhere that are really good. I think you have to find the player suits the game more than the player that looks good somewhere else. You know, right. I think that's the biggest key with finding talent for the Canadian Football League, because there is. I'll use a French term. There is a je ne sais quoi, you know, about the Canadian Football League, right? There is something there that is a bit of a Rubik's Cube. And if you understand it, you can bring guys in and they don't have to be on the team for a year and a half before they can be a running back. There's just a style of running that works so well in the Canadian. Look, you guys had one of the greatest in Brandon, right? Yeah. What did he was so good. They decided he was so talented. He made players miss so much. They made him a receiver. You know, that's what we're talking about here. It's guys that know how to play that wide field, because it's a totally different game.
But Frank, I will say this though: you also have, and this is where I kind of set off the top. You also have to have a coach that has that mindset, because at the time, and anyone that's covered the team or any of the players will tell you, did Brandon Banks have that ability and speed and slipperiness, and like that was always there as a kick returner, but Kent Austin refused to use him as a guy, as a receiver, right? And June Joe, he got promoted to president and GM or whatever he did. And I love Kent, but he can be stubborn, right? He's got his way of thinking, and heck, and he's won Grey Cup, so who am I to argue with this? But the reality is, June Jones, a fresh mind, came in there, and June Jones says, hold on a second. This guy's the fastest guy in the league. Our guys can't even tackle him. Why is he only returning kicks? All right. And then he puts him at a wide receiver situation, and then in a year he wins CFL MVP. So the coach has to have the mindset as well, too. And this is where going back to our original point, that you've got to be patient and let guys do what they do, or at least find the most talented guys to do what they do, and have some patience with them.
And I think patience and a recognition of what works in the Canadian Football League. Yep. You know, yeah, David.
Yeah, I mean, with running backs, they always credit the offensive line for giving them holes, but then you look at AJ Ouellette, like he right? Wow. He's a guy that shows that no, he'll make his own holes. He'll just. Yeah. I think like you're starting to see, I think, more teams go on the lines of that power back that's just gonna make more of the holes for themselves, or just be tougher to bring down. So I think, you know, that's the type of running back that's gonna have a lot more success, just because, you know, smaller guys, speedy guys, you know, because of that yard off the football and the ability for these defensive linemen to get to the running backs a lot earlier, it's tougher for them. And so that's why I think guys who have a little more meat on the bones, but also still have some get up, some acceleration, those are the ones that tend to do better in the CFL. And I think AJ Ouellette's right now, him and Brady Oliveira kind of both embody that a lot.
Ironically,
look what Scott Milanovich did last year, right? James Butler was a real fan favorite, and he put up some good numbers in his time here in the Canadian Football League. Mm-hmm. And I always, you know, I cheer for the guy with the BC Lions now that he's back with BC. but he saw a back in Greg Bell that, to your point, had maybe a little step slower than Butler, but had the more power, hit the hole harder. Even Augustine, that's playing right now in favor of Greg Bell, bigger guy, veteran guy, still got some speed left, and those guys are getting utilized in the league.
Well, ironically, guys, I mean, Willett lost some weight before this season.
Yeah, he's still a big guy, though.
Still a big guy, yeah. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's it's nuanced, right? Like there I don't think there's a specific prototypical running back in the Canadian Football League. I think there's a couple of different kinds that can work, but it's them specifically that make it work. It's not it's the talent that they have. And there's so many players out there somewhere. And this, again, is the biggest thing. I'm repeating myself, but I really do believe the Canadian Football League is a very fortunate league because they have a lot of players. The pool is deep. You don't have to sit there and keep trying to run out the same thing with a guy that just isn't getting it. Because I think the Canadian Football League, again, I repeat, it's something that you have to understand and you have to get that mindset. Once you get that mindset, you can become a hero really quickly. But if you can't get that mindset in your head, you can't make it work. It's not going to go well for you, no matter how many times you go out there.
Look at what Winnipeg did, right? Like Brady Oliveira comes down, and that's a huge loss. This is a guy that if he didn't win the CFL MVP, he was knocking on the door the year prior, and he gets hurt in what looks like a serious injury, and Winnipeg, which are the number one plug and play team over the last 5 years. Is that fair to say? Like they just find guys. I don't know. You talk about Frank. You talk about this finding guys or guys that suit what you do specifically. A Canadian running back in Peterson steps in there, and what a job he's done. Now it looks like Oliveira will be back this week, but boy, what what a great story for them.
Absolutely great story. I mean, the best story since Harris was replaced by Oliveira. Because that's exactly what I mean. And if you, I guess, David, can we talk about Canadian talent, Canadian athletes? It's not just the Canadian Football League. I don't mean to take, you do more than football on CHCH. So I'm sure you're well versed on the fact that a couple of Canadians have done really well in professional sports. Canadians are doing really well. And it's no surprise to me that more Canadian players are playing better in the Canadian Football League. I just think there was a time, you may or may not remember, guys, maybe I'm too old, but Canadians weren't really outside of hockey and maybe relay races and stuff and skiing and stuff like that. I don't want to be specific about those sports, but the point I'm trying to make is Canadian talent now spreads all the sports. It's everywhere. Canadian talent shows up everywhere today.
Well, of course, the city I'm from, and a guy that's getting paid now $72 million a year. $72 million a year, right? Right. But here's the thing. Is he not? Is it not deserved? Right?
Yeah.
Scoring champion, NBA MVP, Finals MVP, like leader of the team. 32 points a game. Right now, I know it's a football show, but you're right. The Canadian, but look at the NBA. Right? Who's importing more players in the NBA of any country other than Americans right now?
It's Canadians.
Right? We're starting to see improvements in Canadian baseball. We got baseball leagues all over the place right now. It's especially right in our area right now.
But who would have thought that the MVP of the NBA would be Canadian and from Hamilton? I'm not trying to diss Hamilton, right? I'm not, right? But I'm saying the fact that he's from Hamilton is amazing. It's a great thing. But it is surprising, but it speaks to the greatness of the opportunity for Canadian kids to become really good athletes.
Absolutely, right? Frank, you're right, because I come from a time where we celebrated. Hey, think about this, Frank. Because you and I go way back. You remember when, we would compete in the Olympics, and I'm not talking about hockey, right? I mean, we're talking about all kinds of sports, and you named a couple, and skiing, and we could go on and on. We were really happy to hear the stories about guys hitting their personal bests.
Right.
Like that was the big celebration. He finished second, but he set a personal best. Go Canada.
He finished.
He finished the race, right? She finished the race, but set a personal best. What an accomplishment.
Well, and then the Vancouver Olympics happened. Everything changed after that.
Changed everything. Look at Summer McIntosh, guys.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yep.
She's setting world records like she does it blind now. Like this is, and then you talk about sports that we never dominated in. We always like Alex Bauman. We got some guys every once in a while that would step up and win some races. But she is clearly the best in the world right now, and she's so young and getting better and better. She is, in my opinion, I was telling this to someone. I think she's like going to be one of the world's biggest sports stars. Like, look at her, statuesque. Look, she's got this friendly attitude, and I think she knows about how to sell the game, and she's backing it with these crazy wins and beating the Americans. And remember Ledecky? Like, no one ever thought anyone would be better. She's smashing her. She's amazing.
The other thing about Summer that I like a lot is that as good as she is, she doesn't have an ego at all.
No.
She is so down to earth, and it's like when you hear her talk about her sport, you're going, okay, so she's a participant. She's looking to do her best, right? And then you watch how she does, and you're going, holy mackerel. And that's the part. For me, her personality doesn't match her. She's huge as an athlete, but I'm sure that'll change in a good way. It'll change as things go on. But that's fantastic. When we see all these Canadian, especially female tennis players that we have coming up, Montreal is a hotbed for tennis. Yeah. I mean, it's just incredible. We're lucky as Canadians when it comes, to the Olympics, and when it comes to, pro sports. We're lucky when it comes to athletes that we can support. Our teams, they leave a little more.
Frank, remember when Lori Kane used to get really close to winning tournaments? Like, Lori Kane just missed out. She finished second. And then Brooke Henderson steps in and she wins like 13 times, breaks a Canadian record. Like, she's won more like than Mike Weir, right? In like a matter of like 5 or 6 years. Right? It's amazing. Got that
personality too that you don't see her attitude as a champion. Literally, I guess what you can say is she's typically Canadian, but
she's so easy to cheer. So easy to cheer for. It really is
very, very easy.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to sidetrack us. Let's talk about the game before. Oh my goodness, we've gone over. By the way, the record's 130. What is it? 138 with. Oh geez, now it doesn't matter. Saskatchewan news guy. Anyway, what I wanted to say is this: is that for Toronto to win, for Hamilton to win, for either of them to lose, Bubba, what has to happen for Hamilton to win? What do we need to see on Friday? What do you need to see? What do Hamilton fans need to see for them to win?
Continued steps on offense, right? An ability to run the ball. And I think for Bo Levi Mitchell to spread the ball around and not fall in love with Kenny Lawler, because I think the Argos defense can be had. And I think if the Argos fall behind, I think they're in trouble. I really do. Yeah. And that's regardless of how the Ticats defense plays. But I think this is going to be coming off a game where, I thought the Ticats defense was mainly responsible for a win. I think this is an opportunity for the Ticats to go on the road. And if their offense can dictate what happens in terms of dictating play by spreading the ball around, good mix between the run and the pass. Last game, Bo hit 9 different receivers, right? If he can maintain that and maybe push the ball downfield a little bit more than some of these screen passes and flare passes, I think the Argonauts are in trouble.
You're talking about helping the defense, David.
Yeah, I agree with Bubba. You can't get off to a slow start, And Toronto special teams better not have any of those gaffes that they had. They got to be ready because Hamilton's doing a good job on all three phases, and Toronto's going to have to be equally as good.
And Mark Leggio doesn't miss field goals.
There you go. And the special teams that the Argos have are doing really well, just not from where you expect it to happen. So we'll see. One game back, their kick return will be a little better this week. For me, it's about Toronto being consistent and being not so in love with taking penalties. I think this game's going to be a very intense game. I think we're going to see a lot of penalties that are on the tail end of jaw talk. There's going to be a fair bit of that when these two teams get together. There's a lot of banter that goes on, and banter usually leads to somebody losing their temper and then causing a coach to lose his hair. So
Scott doesn't have any.
Exactly. But it'll be a great game, and we're going to see an entertaining fan base in BMO. We haven't seen a lot of Hamilton fans in the past few years. I think we're going to get an uptick of that when they do come back here. We're going there now. Toronto's going there, but we're going to see. I think you're going to see a full stadium. Any concerns with not selling out? I think you're done. That's not an issue. But they got to build on that. Like you said, they got to stack them. They can't win one and expect the fans to believe in them, and you can't expect the team to believe in themselves if they don't start stacking some wins.
No, I think for Tiger Town, it's the perfect time to hop on the GO train and get down to BMO Field and back the Tiger Cats. There is no, and I talked to Simone Lawrence about this on our podcast, on our post game show after the Alouettes victory, and he pretty much let it be known that there is no more pleasurable place to win a game, including home, than at BMO Field.
I find that hard to believe. I think you're blowing smoke, buddy. I think you're blowing smoke.
You talked to Simone. Simone's had some big games in Toronto.
Tell me that Hamilton fans or players find more satisfaction in winning and being.
No. For him personally. He was talking about himself personally.
I think it goes for all of them.
Because he said there's nothing like winning a game and then going to the clubs and talking trash with the Toronto people. Simone.
I got news for you. Hamilton fans don't miss the winning as much as they miss winning at BMO and yelling, Argos suck, and it has some meaning. That's the whole point of going to BMO Field for Hamilton fans. David.
Yeah, it's I'm anticipating hopefully a good crowd, and it just brings the atmosphere to the game because the players get into it. Brings players. Hopefully, the players will contain some of that excitement for the actual on the field stuff, and we'll hopefully get a good game out of it.
Well, as long as Andre Prue's not and his staff is not.
Oh, here we go. Old pain, old wound.
I didn't say that, did I? Did I say that? I'm sorry.
I know we were talking about Brandon, but you didn't have to bring him up. I mean, I'm still haunted on behalf of Hamilton fans in the Grey Cup when Brandon ran it back for a touchdown and they called it back for a tackle that they didn't call back last week. It's just amazing. Anyway, yeah, a lot of history. We love the game. I'm glad to have you here. I know how much you love the game, Bubba, and I really appreciate everything you do to promote the game. And keep doing it. And thanks for doing it.
Hey, guys, this has been a lot of fun. And anytime we can talk to football, you know where to find me.
Thank you, Bubba.
David, thanks for doing this as usual.
Thank you, Frank.
Okay, he's David Morris-Sudi. He's Bubba O'Neill, CHCH. I'm Candid Frank. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week. We don't know what day it'll be. It depends what the guest wants to do. We've learned that over the past few weeks. Thank you. YouTube, Candid Frank Sadishi on YouTube, 10:30. See you then, folks. Enjoy your weekend.
The